Within all of Bluelock, the highest ranking one can achieve is the world-class level. These are the characters who are known as actual pros of football, with insane skills that allows them to compete for the best player in the world. All of them have wiped the floor compared to everyone in Bluelock. When we see these players, we just know some stuff is about to go down. Either some of the best plays we've seen in the series, or just stuff we actually can't comprehend because they're so good. The gap between the professional players and some of the best players we have seen is actually crazy. Professional players are the best of the best and quite literally hyped up to be the final bosses or villains of the whole series. So all of the pro players are some of the most important characters for the rest of the series, and with Bluelock having 9 confirmed pro players at this point, who are the best pro players and who are the worst pro players we have seen? Ranking these players is one of the hardest and most important arguments because we've seen so little, but at the same time so much from these characters. So of course, I'm going to be ranking who I think are the worst and best professional players in all of Bluelock. Alright, so first we have to list all of the pro players. The pro players we have seen so far include the World 5. So this is Leonardo Luna, Adam Blake, Pablo Cavosas, Dada Silva, and Julian Loki. And of course, the master strikers, which are Noel Noah, Chris Prince, Lavinho, Snuffy, as well as Julian Loki again, but he was part of the World 5, so we can't count him twice. In total, that makes 9 pro players we need to rank. Keep in mind, these are the best players, strikers, top scorers, top club players. Every single title you can imagine, these players have. So ranking them is a very hard thing to do, so we're gonna have to take in consideration a few things. Their titles, like what we've heard about these players, as well as feats, what we've seen from these players. These are super important because some titles have way more significance than the others, but feats also prove these titles. You'll see what I mean as we go through the 9 players. Starting with the worst pro player from the 9 pros, this is gonna be Dada Silva, who was part of the World 5. Now, when we talk about the worst, this doesn't mean that Dada Silva is bad. He is literally known as a top striker selected specifically to destroy Bluelock. It's just that we've seen the least amount from him. When we look at Silva's title, he was introduced as the Ravenous Heavy Tank. And when you compare that title to the other titles, it's just not that big of an accomplishment. It's not even an accomplishment, it's just an adjective. You have players like Loki, who are considered the young prodigy, Noel Noah, the best striker in the world, Snuffy, the best overall player, so his title compared to the rest doesn't hold too many accomplishments. In terms of feats, they're actually pretty insane though, as even though we've only seen him make 1 goal, he managed to outjump Hiryo. You can tell the type of timing Dada Silva was gonna be on when he started smiling, seeing a 6'5" lengthy human being, and was still confident he was gonna win. And he did! Silva getting to the ball first is genuinely insane. This would mark the only time Hiryo has ever lost in a height battle, and for a heavy tank like Silva to do it, it makes it all the more impressive. You can tell that most of the World 5 wasn't trying too hard when scoring, and that applies to Silva as well. I mean, laughing and saying you're only here for a little bit of extra money, yeah, it's no doubt that we haven't seen his fullest potential. But even then, we've seen the least amount from Silva and probably the lowest title out of the 9. We're really building up to the best pro players in the whole series, so of course we have to talk about the worst. That being said, he's gonna be here at the last place. For our number 8, this is someone who holds the title of the best at something, and that's Pablo Cavosas, specifically the best at free kicking. Now, unlike Silva, who was listed without any accomplishments, Pablo was named the title of best free kicker in the world, so we know he has some insane skills. And unlike Silva as well, we actually see a lot from Pablo in the game. It wasn't too direct, but we know he has metavision due to his eyes shifting around the field and finding the best pass course. The passes were super accurate, and even though he got dribbled past by Bachira, he turned up the notch from 1% to 2% and instantly managed to stop him with no difficulty. On top of that, he managed to analyze Bachira's playstyle, only seeing it twice, and made a curve shot that kind of looks like Rin's curve shot. Even though we don't see too many feats from him or any insane weapons from him, he does have the title of best free kicker, so it's enough to pit him above Silva, but not anyone else. Which brings us to the 7th spot, which is actually going to be a controversial one, and this is Leonardo Luna. Out of the World 5 besides Loki, Luna is probably the one you remember the most, since he comes from Real, and he knew Itoshi Sai. He was also the most diabolical player when it comes to out-of-pocket lines. Remember that all 9 players are the best strikers in the world, so we need to go off feats and titles. And for Luna, he has the title of Scion of Real. If you're like me pulling out the Webster's dictionary and how to search up what Scion means, he's basically nicknamed the prince of the best club in the world, which is a pretty big achievement. But honestly, we don't really know what it means too much. Like, he's obviously a great striker, but it isn't as crystal clear as number 1 or best at something. So we have to look at his feats, and in terms of feats, we actually do see him do some ultra fast scissors and then find Rin's weak spot instantly, also calling him loose. Like, what purpose does this serve? Is he trying to talk up Rin? He could have said anything and he managed to say the most vile thing possible on top of the other dialogue he already said. Luna ended up making a goal though, like the other World 5. Honestly though, he's probably the least character we have seen out of the World 5 as well. So it's really hard to judge, especially since he was only shown scoring at the end. You can actually make the argument that we've seen more feats from Pablo than Luna, but I think off titles and the feats that we saw, and the fact that he's in Real, which we know is the best club, he's going to be at the 7th spot. At number 6, I'm going to be placing the young prodigy Julian Loki here, so our first Master Striker rating. This is where the debate actually starts to get really hard between each and every single one of the pro players, because now we have to look at every single thing. Now keep in mind, being a Master Striker doesn't necessarily mean you are better than the World 5. That hasn't been stated. They're all world-class level players, so that's why I'm going off feats and titles. Loki has probably the most broken weapon in the series, and that is Godspeed. And considering he's only 17, there's still so much potential with him, and he may end up being the final villain. It is a double-edged sword though, because since he is so young, he doesn't have as much experience or titles as the others. What we do have from Loki is feats though. Loki's feats are genuinely some of the craziest on this whole list. Loki entered the field and locked eyes with Isagi like he was a Pokemon rival, and then blasted through Bluelock in the World 5 match, defeating every single player on Isagi's team by himself, the only player in the World 5 match to do so individually. And the reason why I'm making this video now is because we've finally seen Loki play in the Neo Egoist League, and man, this guy does not disappoint. Watching Loki play is absolute cinema. We gotta give Godspeed a new name, and that's teleportation. It literally looks a little too broken. Can someone explain to me slowly just what is going on here? Isagi mid-trap gets the ball stolen by Loki, and then he starts moving upfield, passing every single player in Bastard, and then does a Clash Royale laughing emoji by saying you're too slow. It's literally a weapon that defies logic. Even catching up to a Kaiser Impact and blocking it, I'm not gonna lie, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to analyze how broken this is. Golly, did Loki tap into the Speed Force? Noel, the person who holds the title of #1 striker, says that Loki is the talent that threatens him the most. Loki genuinely has the most hype out of every single character. Weapons alone, it's not crazy to say that Loki has the best weapon because of how overpowered it is. It's on the borderline of being unrealistic, but I do think there is so much room for Loki to grow. The only thing we've seen from Loki is his Godspeed, and you can make the argument that he's too reliant on his absolute weapon. He also doesn't have any major titles or past achievements like the others to really solidify a higher ranking, but because I think he is a super important character towards the end of the manga, or when we actually see more of him, he'd probably be way higher on this list, but for now, I'm gonna be putting him at the 6th spot. We are halfway through and at our number 5 spot, but before that, make sure to hit the subscribe button. I spent way too much time deciding who goes where and why, and with Bluelock's NEL ending and Season 2 finally out, now it's a perfect time to join our community to stay updated on everything Bluelock. The number 5 spot is the direct opposite of Loki, someone with a lot of experience but low feats, and that is Adam Blake, the last member of the World 5. Now, even though we don't see too much from Adam Blake, his title alone, I would say, is the best of the World 5, having his crowning achievement of top scorer in the English League. Comparing that title to other World 5 members, it blows them out of the water because it's a true statement. Not like Silva, where he's considered ravenous, Loki, who's said to make waves. Those are all adjectives or opinions. This one spells it out for us as a fact. And considering that Chris Prince, the Manshine Master Striker, plays in the English League, and Adam Blake managed to outscore him, you can say that Adam Blake might be a better striker due to him scoring more goals. I think a lot of people forgot about that, and Chris Prince is said to be a world-class striker on par with Noel. Remember that being a Master Striker doesn't necessarily mean you are better than the World 5. So by that logic alone, he should be pretty high on the list, but from what we've seen from him, like the other World 5 players, he barely put in effort and managed to score while pushing over Tokimitsu. Now, I don't think there is that big of a difference in terms of upgrades for Tokimitsu, and in the most recent chapter, he attempted to stop Noel Noah and actually succeeded in overcoming his physique, resulting in a foul. That might not mean that much, but it does just prove how insane Adam Blake's physique is, especially considering that Tokimitsu took down Noel Noah, who is known for his physique as well. So we haven't seen Adam Blake's full potential yet. He wasn't trying. The fact that he managed to be the top scorer in the English league and his weapon of physique is insane. Someone gotta check on this guy if he's on steroids. I think this is a good spot for him because we haven't seen much of the World 5, and maybe he isn't as good as an all-rounder, so we can't place him any higher. But in terms of scoring, you can say he's one of the best. You can debatably switch him between Loki because Loki has more on-screen feats, but I think this specific title carries him up to the 5th spot. And in the 4th spot, probably going to be the most controversial pick on this list, I'm putting Chris Prince here. Now let's put down the pitchforks and hear me out here. There is a good reason why Chris Prince isn't top 3, even though he was said to be the number 2 striker. Chris Prince as a coach and his ideals are pretty good. You can see a noticeable change in Shigiri, Reo, and Nagi when it comes to their physique, as well as just having amazing overall stats individually. In terms of hype, I love his ideals of grinding until you become the best version of yourself, essentially, but we're not here ranking solely on ideals. We're taking in consideration titles and feats. Now, when you look at Chris Prince's title of the 2nd best striker, it's obviously a high achievement until you look at the fine line, which is a Player of the Year award based on votes. It honestly depends on whether you think the votes are actually accurate or have any merit to them, or if you think the votes are just from popularity alone. In that case, you would just throw this title out of the building. But it's really hard to gauge whether the title of 2nd best striker is actually true or not. Let's just say it is, but in order to really know, we have to look at his other titles and feats as well. His only other title or accomplishment is the fact that he was said to be a striker on par with Noel Noah at the start of the NEL. That title is pretty insane because we know how good Noel Noah is, and they're saying that he's on par with him. But it's also kind of the reason why I put him down here, because Chris Prince honestly doesn't have much to actually prove he's a striker on par with him. It'll make more sense in a second. Let's go over his weapons first. His weapons include an amazing physique that went head-to-head with Kaiser, but let's be honest, if any of the world-class players lost to Kaiser in a physique battle, I think they would be on major fraud watch. And the Kaiser 1v1 didn't even end up resulting in much because the fight ended up getting interrupted. So we have to look at his other feats, which we have the world's most illogical shot. Even though Noel Noah was a little shocked at the shot itself, it didn't really end up doing anything as well because Isagi just blocked it and the fight restarted. So in terms of feats where you have a Loki passing teams by himself, Chris holding his own against Kaiser and then missing a goal isn't really hard evidence for him being the 2nd best striker. It's more impressive for Kaiser that he was able to keep up with Prince than the other way around. The only other feat that Chris Prince has as well is catching up and blocking Yukimiya's goal. So he has some defensive feats, and I guess it does prove his physique is really good because he was able to catch up. It is weird though because he's considered the number 2 striker with no on-screen striker feats and only his physique to back up his claim. It's kind of hard to put him up here. Chris Prince reminds me of Bluelock Season 2. The bar was set really high and they both didn't reach it, and it's not like we're just saying that to say that. They both proved it. I've been trying to balance between titles and feats for all the characters, and it seems like Chris's title is the only thing that carries him so far. But the problem is, how truthful is that title when he's had a 0 on-screen striker feats to prove he's actually the 2nd best? And the fact that the voting for it wasn't even close, Noel Noah beat him by 600 votes. By that same logic, Adam Blake could technically be above Chris Prince because he's the top scorer in the same league as him. And because Chris Prince's title relies so heavily on being the number 2 striker, him getting outscored should mean his title is less than Adam Blake's title. That's why this debate is so hard, because most of the stuff is off-screen. Adam Blake's title was given off-screen, and Prince's title was given off-screen. We haven't seen much. You can make the argument that we only see Prince for a limited amount of time. The Master Strikers do only sub in for 3 minutes, but that argument can be made for every single Master Striker. So even though Prince's title of being the world's 2nd best striker is an incredible achievement, the evidence behind it doesn't really prove it. So I don't think it can carry him any further than this, unlike the other players above him. Alright, our final 3 players, technically the top 3 in the Bluelock verse, because these players are really the best of the best world-class level. With Noel Noah, Snuffy, and Lavinho left, coming in at an obvious third, it's gonna be Levinho. Now, honestly, Levinho, I think, is the most underrated Master Striker. If we're taking in consideration what he has done, as well as his titles, it makes a lot of sense for why he's up here. Let's put on our tinfoil hats and think for a second. First of all, Levinho's title is the Dancer. This is because his dribbling prowess is so damn good that everyone just topples down a dance of defeat. And we see that because he ends up passing Isagi and the rest of Bastard Munich to score a goal, so it's no doubt in anyone's mind that Levinho is one of, if not the best dribbler. Comparing that feat to the other Master Strikers specifically, passing a whole team by yourself is impressive, and is something that Prince, who is below him, hasn't done. However, Loki is below Levinho and he's passed a team by himself on actually 2 occasions, but Levinho has an NEL goal above Loki. So you can technically say Levinho has done more than Loki. And you can also make the argument that Loki hasn't played. Fact is, Levinho has an NEL goal in the 3 minutes that he did end up playing. But one of the main reasons is that Levinho actually came on during the PXG game and helped Barca make the score 3-2 with 2 assists in 3 minutes. If it wasn't for him, you could say that Barca would have got dumpstered, so Levinho hard carried his team here. And at this point, Levinho has some really good offensive feats. He has 1 goal, 2 assists, and has some good individual plays. His title also confirms he's self-sufficient because he is one of the best dribblers. In terms of coach and ideals though, Levinho is probably the worst coach. He doesn't even coach, he just says follow your heart. And considering his team is 0-3, maybe his ideals really only work for him and Bachara. So I don't know. The whole point and the reason why Levinho is up this high is because they're all top strikers. All of the Master Strikers are known as the best, but Levinho has proved it the most out of the 5 Master Strikers because he has the most offensive feats. So although his title doesn't say he's the second best striker, instead saying he's the best dribbler, he's proved the most out of the 5 in the NEL that he's a top striker. It really all depends on how much you value on-screen versus off-screen feats. Of course, all the off-screen feats are the titles that I've been taking into consideration, so depending on what you value more, you can have Levinho down, Chris Prince up. It all depends on you. But I think because of his title still holding significance, the best dribbler is a pretty substantial title that he has proven. As well as all the offensive feats, I'm going to be placing him at the 3rd best we've seen. So for the final 2 players, we got Noel Noah and Snuffy. And no doubt, these players are the only players in contention for the number 1 and 2 spot. So let's go over both of their feats and titles. Noel Noah is obviously the player we know the most, the current number 1 striker in a landslide victory, and Bastard Munich's Master Striker. Throughout the whole series, he's been regarded as the best from players like Isagi, all the way to Ego himself, and he's proven that through his feats. Like Loki and Levinho, who are impressive because they've taken care of teams by themselves, Noel Noah has also done that, dribbling and even scoring against Barca and Levinho himself, due to his weapon. His ambidextrous weapon allows him to keep the same power in each of his foot, so he's able to score from many different angles, as well as accelerate really quickly, and he has amazing physicality. We've seen him duel with almost every single Master Striker at this point, besides Loki, and when he plays, it's almost as overpowered as Loki's Godspeed, because we've seen him just mow down teams with his rational thinking. As an overall player, Noel Noah is just decent. We haven't seen too many feats from him. There isn't any defensive feats besides dueling and stalling Master Strikers, but he's helped Isagi and Kaiser make a lot of plays with his passes, even in the most recent chapter. He's shown off all these skills on multiple occasions and in multiple positions. I think if Noel Noah played as a striker for every match, or if the NEL just didn't have 3 goals, he'd probably have another goal or so. His philosophy is solely based on being a rational player as perfectly as possible, which led him to the number 1 spot. And considering he won the World Cup as well, I think it's no doubt in everyone's mind that he's the current number 1 striker. In contrast though, you have Mark Snuffy, who instead of being regarded as the best striker, is considered the best overall player. It's 2 very notable but different achievements, but Snuffy definitely proves his case as the best overall player since he's shown to have a strategic mind, metavision, and physicality. This strategic mind was able to outread Isagi's metavision, and take into consideration this was during the Ubers when Isagi was giving the performance of a lifetime. In terms of physicality, he was able to fend off of both Isagi and Noel Noah at the same time, and then we see him and Noel Noah duel many times after this. We also see his physicality beat out Kaiser, and then on top of that, he was able to take part in the plans, supporting players like Barou with his passes. And that's all individual stuff. When you look at how much he has done for his team, setting up many different plays, what he calls designs, and keeping a super aggressive momentum for his team, where legit the only counter was just to stall him until he gets subbed out, you can't get a higher compliment than that. The thing that makes Snuffy so strong wrong is that he's great individually, but even better as a team player, being able to maximize his team's efficiency. It's all backed up by Snuffy's playstyle, who, like Noel Noah, thinks rationally and level-headed, thinking of it more like a job, which makes him a super consistent player. And that playstyle has taken him so far, winning 4 out of the 5 big leagues. So in terms of off-screen feats, both Snuffy and Noel Noah have proved their titles with a lot of evidence. So we have the #1 striker and the best overall player, with all their titles and feats listed out. Who is the #1 and who is the #2? This is a very hard decision to make because it's like comparing two very different things. You're comparing a striker and an overall player, also taking into account other titles and feats they've done. Like this whole list, you can very easily swap between the two. That's how close it is. However, I'm going to be putting at my #2 spot Noel Noah, which means Mark Snuffy is our #1 spot. Now, I think because Snuffy is considered the best overall player, and he has proven that with many different achievements like 4 big league wins, making a huge impact on Ubers both on an individual level and on a team level, is the reason why I'm putting him at the #1 spot. This doesn't discredit Noel Noah in any way as well. He's still the better striker, but we're taking in consideration everything. I would say Snuffy with his designs have played more of an integral part in the Ubers compared to Noel Noah in Bastard. Noel Noah himself didn't even have a counter to him besides stall him out. If that doesn't tell you how much he's changing the game for Ubers individually, then I don't know what is. Alright, so that is all 9 pro players in Bluelock ranked from worst to best based on the titles and feats we have seen. Remember, this is my personal opinion. I think there are so many characters that can be swapped around, especially since it depends on how you interpret titles and how important you think feats are. Let me know if you agree or disagree with me, or just your opinion on the best and worst pros in Bluelock. I think all these players are going to have a major role sooner or later in the series. So I'm super excited to see where that all goes. If you watched to the end, thank you so much as always. I appreciate it, and I'll see y'all in the next one.